I want to start this conversation off with a question I asked you much earlier in the season about identity, and I recall you said it could take years to form an identity for an inaugural team. But as we stand right now in January, this team's hunting maybe a further extension into the regular season and into maybe postseason. But for the time being, do you feel like you have found an identity for this season, the 24-25 season?
No, I don't. And I think talking about playoffs in January is very premature. So I think that we're still a work in progress. We've had a little bit of success here over the last 10 to 14 days. But as we all know, that this league is, full of its challenges and, full of uncertainties. And, for us, it's a day in, day out, hour in, hour out process of finding ways to get better. And, I thought we did a good job of that over the last couple of days. We'll give the guys a day off tomorrow, just as we call it a midweek reset. Then we'll be back on Thursday. And again, we've got a really hot Utah team coming in. They've gotten some scorers down from the AHL that have really impacted their group. They've got some defensemen down that can move the puck, and they're a very well-coached team. I got a lot of respect for Ryan over there. So, I think it's just again, a day in and day out process of getting better.
In the ECHL, things can change on a whim, and you're very familiar with this. How do you prepare for that? Say somebody gets called up and you're left without a centerman or whatever the case may be. I know you've made moves to sort of brace for those impacts, but can you, or do you address it as it occurs?
I think that's a good question. First off, I'm very fortunate that I got Dan Larmer and Jesse Messier that really support what we do here. They're very diligent in their approach to their craft, and they keep their thumb on the pulse, so to speak. Their finger on the pulse. So, from that standpoint, we're really lucky as an organization. The other part of it is, we do have, we've incurred a lot of injuries this year, and we still continue to incur those injuries and call-ups, right? We got Caddick called up now. We got McLaughlin. We've got Panwar, who's been, called up for a long time. And obviously, we're really happy with those guys. And now, obviously, Sinclair's called up as well. And we're really proud of those guys. And when they leave, it allows someone else to step up. So it's kind of like a two-prong approach. We try and be prepared with players that might be available, but we also feel like we've got some really good players in this dressing room that when those guys are here, maybe their roles get a little marginalized, but then when they leave, that's their opportunity to step up. And, that idea of always being ready for when your number's going to be called. And over the past, 3-4 weeks, we've had situations where those things have occurred, and I think some guys have stepped up, and obviously some haven't. And the guys that didn't, we had to sort of get them out of here and allow the other guys that are stepping up to fill those roles.
To give a peek behind the curtain here with two affiliates, when we have guys like Montgomery, Caddick, McLaughlin, go back and forth, even Sinclair now, how are the conversations between you and the American Hockey League team to make those guys better here when they come here so they can get up to the AHL and stay in the AHL? Because obviously that's their goal.
Yeah, we're first off, to be a dual affiliate is you're very fortunate at this level. Obviously, you have two teams supporting your roster, and whenever you have that, it's a really fortunate situation. With regard specifically to our two affiliates, I've got a great relationship with Darren York. We talk, whenever we need to talk, and we're also aligned on, what their players need to do to work on when they're here, and we diligently go about that. With regards to Hartford, again, we're super fortunate. I've got a really good relationship with both Ryan and Joey, and they support us. We usually have a wrap up after every weekend, and we'll talk through each player's performances. They've already watched video on them and sort of share their feedback, and so it's a real group effort. To get these guys ready for when they're, from when their number should get called, that they're ready to perform at the levels above us.
All right, now looking at the Utah Grizzlies, you spoke about them getting hot. They're getting scoring impact. I think they've won 6 of the last 8, if memory serves me right. What have you noticed on video from them? What are you trying to implement against the Utah Grizzlies? I know you do a lot of self-focus. So what does this team need to bring to the table to get some victories?
Yeah, until you kind of get into it, you can watch as much film as possible. Until you see your guys against them like live, then you start getting a better handle of it. But on first blush or whatever, I think that they're an offensive team that can create a lot of offense. So obviously we got to shut down some of their key guys, as I mentioned earlier. And from there, it's really about how we play. Our attention to detail, sticking to the structure of the system. managing pucks, limiting turnovers, those sorts of things that we've talked about all season. Obviously, we play best when we get to the net front, and we can create havoc, and our D get their shots, to the net. We're kind of a hard team to play against, and then obviously our forecheck. When I talk to coaches around the league that have played us, they always comment on how hard our forecheck is, and we can get into bodies, and we got some guys with speed. So it's really about us not killing our speed and making sure that we're playing to the best of our ability. And then from there, it's we're very fortunate. We've got two very good goalies here. Even when Sinclair's not here, I think Brian Wilson showed that he can play at this level. And then it comes down to the execution.